What was the best sounding death metal record of all time? Hey everyone, Mike here with Extreme Metal Magazine. Welcome back to another video. Now, this is not about what the best death metal record of all time was, but the best sounding. And, you may think upon first glance that the two are the same, but I really think to say what's the best death metal record of all time, I really think that's an extremely difficult question to answer. You could say Morbid Angel, Altars of Madness. You could say kind of an obscure one, which I believe gets no attention, which is Pestilence, Consuming Impulse. But really, my question to all of you is, and I'm really hoping we get some good responses. The last couple of videos I've gotten, I've really appreciated everybody's responses. The comments section are what makes my YouTube channels great. I also run another dinosaur-related YouTube channel. And again, the comments section are what makes everything great. So I really hope if you're watching, you'll take a moment to chime in. But, nonetheless, I really think what is the best death metal sound of all time is kind of a cool question to answer and ask. And that's why I wanted to put this video together. And for me, if you're looking at this backdrop here, to me, the best sound that the death metal genre has ever produced is Leprosy by Death. Now, I know there's going to be controversy back and forth. Some may not agree with that. Some may even say, hey, why didn't you do Scream Bloody Gore? That is Death's first record. But I really think Leprosy, just that sound, Chuck's voice is incredible on that. I really believe he hit a peak. As far as Death goes, some may say it's the demos from 1986, 1984. Those are kind of what people prefer. But nonetheless, for me personally, I think Leprosy is what I would want someone to hear if I was trying to say, hey, here's a good representation of death metal. Listen to this record. Now, do I think that Leprosy is a perfect record? No, I don't. But again, is any record really perfect? There's a few songs where I feel like it falls a little short. Forgotten Past, Choke on It. I don't think those are up to par as some of the other songs are. Now, back to the record though, Leprosy, Left to Die, Pull the Plug. Those are the highlights for me on that album. And I think that they just sound perfect. One of the reasons why I chose this record for myself is because I believe Scott Burns found the perfect mix. And this album was recorded at Morrisound Studio in 1988, really kind of before the heyday of death metal came into, 1989, 1990, 91. So again, this is 88. This is before kind of that mass rush of death metal bands to record at Morrisound. But I just believe they hit the note, they hit the nail right on the head with this record. Chuck's vocals are the perfect intensity, the perfect level. And again, the vocals are all encompassing. A common complaint that I have for even many death metal records that I really enjoy, or grindcore, or really anything, are sometimes the vocals aren't loud enough. A good example of a record that I love and is near and dear to my heart is Symphonies of Sickness by Carcass. One could say that the vocals are just not as sharp and loud as they should be. They're kind of almost in the background, kind of a forethought. Again, the guitar work on that album is amazing. And I've talked about this before. Hopefully I'll make a video on it one day. But I think Reek of Putrefaction, you can make a case in point, is the most extreme metal song of all time. Extremely brutal, almost like caveman, Neanderthal, just back to the primitive, very primal, raw. I love that. But again, that album, Symphonies of Sickness, the whole thing's amazing. I love it. But you can make the argument that the vocals are just not powerful enough. There's just not a crunch to them. They're a little bit weak. They're not as intense and loud as I would want. That's why when you go back to Leprosy, Chuck's voice is just on point. It's freaking incredible. And it's just that right balance between it's not all vocals and it's not all guitar, bass, and drums. I think there are a lot of death metal records where great death metal record, you can obviously hear that it's death metal, but the vocals are not standing right next to the sound. The sound is first and foremost, and then the vocals are kind of weak in the background. And that's why I've chosen Leprosy as just that perfect sound. Again, not the best album. I don't even know if I could choose a best album of all time, but the perfect sound. And I believe those three songs, Pull the Plug, Left to Die, and Leprosy, I believe they really encapsulate what death metal is all about. And again, if I only had a few minutes to show someone, hey, here's death metal, I believe this album would be a great representation. Now, it's also important to note that this album was recorded in the 80s in a time of analog. And I've watched a lot of music composers when they talk about this album and some of Death's albums. And there's just a crunch and a rawness, and you can hear the strings of the guitars and the bass. You can just hear everything. And I believe that's from that analog. Obviously, I'm not going to get into technical details, but just this idea that it's analog, to me, this is the heyday of death metal. This raw sound, raw, but not overly produced. And it's just the right mix of being brutal and raw, but you can hear the instruments. You can hear everything clearly. So to me, Leprosy by Death, I think it's the best sounding death metal record of all time, at least for myself. Love to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments section down below. If you agree with me, great. If you don't and want to rip me to pieces, no worries on that. I'd love to hear you either way. And as always, stay metal.